Well, welcome everybody. Tonight we have a special guest. I'd like to highlight successful entrepreneurs and business people that have kind of gone in a roundabout way to finding their success and not just relying on traditional routes in order to end up with traditional results. And we met Brock when we were getting familiar with Sabri Subri's new course, Quantum Growth. Came across Rich's table, and then he brought it up to my attention. I watched this like amazing webinar that just had me drooling, and I was like, whoa, this is something that I knew like we had to have. And it was at the time that the pandemic was really kicking up, and so it was chaos, right? There's not knowing what was going to happen in the 3D world around us. We just started our business, and so that this was all fresh new territory. And I signed up to get on a sales call with the Quantum Growth crew, and Brock here called me back up. And so we developed a relationship with Brock, and he went over and answered all our questions, and then gave us an offer. And for me, not coming from Wall Street, I was one of the most nervous moments I've ever been in, kind of seeing these two giants go toe to toe with each other over this offer that was on the table. And then lo and behold, we ended up in Quantum Growth shortly thereafter. And that course has been like drinking out of a fire hose. We've been able to apply that to AUTONOMY, and now we're seeing huge results from that. And so I wanted to bring Brock on and just see, how did he get into this position of being a salesperson for King Kong? And in that, be able to share that information with the people in AUTONOMY, because we're on our own individual paths to success. And just to be able to hear from people that don't take the traditional route is really valuable. So Brock, thanks so much for taking my offer of joining me for an interview. That was
Absolutely.
part of my growing up to be able to do that. And I really appreciate you coming on here and talking to the AUTONOMY community.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And first, I do want to just basically acknowledge and congratulate you guys for having the guts to invest in yourselves in uncertain times. Anybody who's listening now or later, like, just recognize it takes a lot of guts to invest in yourself when you don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to turn out. It takes a lot of confidence in yourself. And it's funny, a lot of times when we're in sales, we think about like making the sale or getting someone to make the purchase, and the buyer's thinking about, do I want to buy this thing? But really it's kind of a moment of like you making the decision to step up into that. Because when you pay that money for a course, right, and you put that money, you say, I'm going to do this, right? You now just made that decision to come into that. So it really becomes kind of self-reflective. It's about your decision to step into it and go, okay, I'm going to invest in myself and go. So I give you guys a ton of credit for, making the call. It takes a lot of guts, anytime it takes guts, but in this kind of environment, 10x that, you know, so good on you guys.
Thanks,
and we love
Brock.
having you in there.
It's awesome. We hope to talk about it more in our interview.
Yeah.
Richard, how did you learn about Sabri Subri and then learn about the course?
All right. So the way I know Sabri is one of my subscribers from Tragedy and Hope years ago grew up with Sabri. So when it came time and I was launching AUTONOMY, he said, hey, I have a friend that I went to high school, or it was grade school. I think it was like, elementary school with, and you should talk to him. And I checked out Sabri's work. I was like, this is tight. And so we had a really good first interview. Then he released his book. And since then, I've been handing out his book to anybody who's interested in sales, because you could read a whole plethora of books and not get the same value that you get. It's not easy, but it takes more than a weekend to go through the book. And what you're learning are lifetime, like they're life principles, they're evergreen principles. He didn't invent the wheel, but he very well organized and compiled all that information. And it comes from a lot of experience, a lot of painful experience that people don't want to reproduce. And having a sales background myself in corporate world from, the last century, technically, I spent a lot of the time trying to learn these things, and they weren't all in one book. I had several different mentors. And so I actually had the training experience, had the success under my belt, that I could recognize a brilliant orchestration and a concise, condensed, succinct, here's the nuts and bolts of what you need to do. And it's basically, it's problem solving. That's what you're learning. It's a method of problem solving. And that in and of itself in the book is invaluable. And that's how I learned about the course later, because I was in the email funnel for that.
So yeah, then we joined the course. We started applying everything we started learning there. I did have a major concern. We just dropped all that investment into it, and we had both read the books. Rich sent me a book when he got his from Sabri. And so I was like, oh my gosh, did we just spend X amount of dollars on this course? And it's just going to kind of rehash what I learned in the book. And immediately, like, my fears were thrown out the window because, the fire hose turned on, and I could just feverishly try and write down notes as fast as I could while trying to take down all this knowledge. And it just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've been doing marketing for several years now. And yeah, the behind the scenes look at what marketing is, how the world's shaping into digital marketing, faster than we can even comprehend. And then to apply this on Autonomy, already our funnel has produced 1,400 leads since we got this up and running, all thanks to quantum growth and being able to have a method to get our message out there and to have our audience just see the value in what we're putting out there and jump onto the funnel in order to learn more.
Well, and the other aspect is there's a slide from the course. It's a David Ogilvy quote that says, when your good marketing makes sales superfluous. So by the time we actually got to the call with you, Brock, I think we all know that we had been educated enough to know the value of the offering, that we were just like, how do we make this happen? And the particular precarious timing of it coming right after I prepped for COVID and like bought extra food and all these things I didn't plan on. It's a substantial course, and it was definitely a gut check. And we were able to make that happen because we had to invest in ourselves. We had to put a plan of action together, and we got that taken care of because we wanted to seize that opportunity. It was very important to seize that opportunity at that particular time. And I think this is the time that we could all scale up on ourselves. We can level up on ourselves, and we're in control of that whole process. So I never had a doubt about getting the value out of the course, but here's what I was surprised in quantum growth. By week 3, I was like, this course is already worth the price that I paid for it. By week 4, I was like, this is a little bit like trying to drink from a tsunami. By week 5, I was like, this course is definitely worth 10 times more than we paid for it. And by week 6, I was like, I don't know how we're going to put this all together. There's so much to it. There's like, we could go back and revisit the course over and over and not get it all implemented. So kind of what we did was mapped out a strategy of how to bare bones, like, let's get these, like, just like Sabri says, let's just do it simple. Let's not change anything. We can change stuff later. Let's just set it up like he said and see how it performs. And like Joshua said, the amount of leads that we've gotten in the last month since we turned it on is just unbelievable. I mean, it's 1,400 leads that have come through so far with our high value content offer, which is fantastic, and people love it. And I think we have like a 27% open rate on the emails in that email autoresponder sequence there. Joshua's got some screen sharing, some numbers for you. That's what the lead magnet looks like. And you guys made it
beautiful.
You guys made it hard enough where it's worth it and it's substantial, and we know like you guys are experts to be able to do this so easily. So the DIY, how to apply these ideas, that was enough of a struggle for us to take it really seriously. But everything else kind of works out so easily because Sabri spent so much time organizing and putting this together. I mean, each one of the modules, each one of the weeks is basically like a course that other people would sell you. And so it's like his business in a box. And if I'd have gone to him like 3 years ago and say, hey man, I'll give you $250,000. I want you to show me how you do everything, because I got this course and I want to be able to market like that. I didn't have that money, and he wouldn't have sold me that process. But now that he has a course, I was easily able to invest in that and put it to work and make it pay for itself in under a month. Thank
That's
you,
incredible.
Brock. How many people thank you for those calls, man?
You know, it's happening a bit more frequently at the Quantum Growth as people take responsibility for it, and it settles in a bit more. The agency side's a little more thankless. You know, you kind of bring them on, and they have a team, and it kind of goes off into the distance. But I appreciate that. Thank you, though, Richard. I really do. But
All right.
it's
So for the
becoming a bit
benefit of the audience now, because we're not trying to sell them anything, we're just telling them about this cool thing we bought that doesn't really fit most people's use case. It would be super overkill. Like I tried to imagine like the average business owner trying to implement this and do this. Like you need to have more than one person probably to implement this, and having a team is great. And so I want you to describe what did you sell us? What did we buy from you? That way the audience has that, and that way people on the replay can see it. And like, are you guys being successful with it? I can't imagine you'd have anything but success with, I mean, it's such an over delivery of value that's so easily put into action. It does take a little work. It's not too good to be true, but it is good and it is true, man.
Yeah. Well, again, to give you guys some credit, I mean, the program is really, you know, in itself, not worth anything, right? It takes the person to come in and do it. So kudos to you guys, like, you know, coming in and putting in the work, because you got to put in the work with this one. It's DIY, right? But I think one of the exceptional things about the program is Sabri slaved over creating something that if you just would follow the process, you can be successful. And I think what helps me to be able to get it into more homes and into more people's computers, right, is the fact that that it is laid out in a way that if you just would follow the process, you can be successful. You don't have to be, you know, the next Ty Lopez to come in and make it work. You know what I mean? You can really just come in and follow. You can have very little computer skills, very little knowledge coming in, and you can go in and be successful. Now, in your guys' case, coming in with your skill set you have, what does that do? Right? It helps you to get through it, navigate those waters quicker, and hopefully get a better result straight off. But we truly believe that, you know, anyone coming in, if they have enough, just I guess if they have enough kind of energy to just go through and do it, like commitment would be the word for it. If they have the commitment to just stay on the course and try not to get distracted, right? But just stay on the course and knock it out. We think anyone can be successwul.
Well, I found that to be true.
I started getting up before 5 a.m. since taking Sabri's course in order to.
Well, that's what's interesting about the course, you know. And if you see the way that I offer it and we discuss it, and you look back to our sales call, you know, it's like there's so much in there that we don't even discuss on the sales call, because we have, you know, we're talking about a 30-minute, 45-minute chat, and this is a program that you might be, you know, watching and, you know, working on for the next 2 to 3 months, right? How do I describe that to somebody? There's just too much going on to even be able to really fully express what's in there.
It would take a week just to describe all that's in the course, let alone you have to learn it and then you have to implement it. And those two things are doable for sure, because we just did it at a lower level, and we're looking to like, how do we get more out of that process that we just started to implement?
And, you know, a lesson that I learned as Sabri comes to the table and goes, hey guys, we got this exciting new project we're going to launch called Quantum Growth, bang, and hits us with this thing. I'm like, this is exciting, right? But what I found was such an interesting challenge that came from that is I got so wrapped up in it and so sold and excited about it that I was chomping at the bit to get on the phone to tell people about it, because I was like, this is incredible. And I could understand how revelational it was, how amazing it could be, right? And I was so excited. But you just can't, you can't cover those things. You need to still focus on the basics and find out what people really need, and focus on the problem solution stuff on the call. Because if you come in really excited, you try to just explain everything, it's too much to really put into a conversation. So you I actually had to you know, chill myself out of it and bring it back, you know, because I just wanted to vomit about all the things that are in the program.
So my long short of it, and then I'll hand the talking stick over to Joshua, is that Quantum Growth takes digital marketing services up here that most entrepreneurs can't afford, and it gives you the toolkit so that you can afford it at this level. So eventually you could pay somebody else to do all those things for you, but it's like the bootstrapping level. It's like that missing link that's been there. It's inhibiting entrepreneurs from growing, because it's the great barrier of how to get leads and how to convert those leads systematically to scale.
We're teaching you start to finish how to go and find customers. in a way that is predictable, step by step, start to finish, regardless of where you're coming in, even if you have no money to spend on ads, to be able to go out and never have to worry about where to find a customer again. Never have to worry about where your next customer is coming from. Just get that nailed down, because we truly believe that if you can just nail down that part and never worry about where your next customer is coming from, all the other stuff becomes easier. All the other stuff's easier. Because now money's coming in. We can hire people to do stuff. Like you said, you can outsource. You can do all kinds of stuff. It really opens the doors up. But we find that that's the biggest problem that every business is facing. So how do I get in my next customer? How do I do that predictably? So I think if you follow the course, you can do that. And if you can do that, sky's the limit for you.
Well, Brock, I would really love to hear how you got into this position. Did you take kind of your orthodox approach and got all straight A's in school, and then were able to get into the college of your dreams in order to get a job with King Kong? How did this
Harvard,
come about?
10 years of Harvard hard study. No, quite the contrary. Not to demotivate anyone from going that path of the educational pathway. Early on, I grew up with teachers in my family, and they all kind of encouraged me to go down the education route, and it just didn't sit right with me because I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, and so what came from that is kind of doing some different jobs, and then getting to a point where let's be straight to it. At one point, I was broke, absolutely broke, and I applied for multiple jobs, didn't have any luck, and I just thought, okay, what's a job I could do that nobody else wants to do? Looking at the job ads, what's a job that I could come in regardless of my experience level, that it didn't matter, it didn't matter what my past was or my education level was, with minimal risk to the employer. And it quickly jumped out as sales. And so early on I got into, and I always enjoyed sales to some degree. I did some. And so ended up in door-to-door sales. And that kind of really kicked off and sparked my interest in I remember telling my parents I took a door-to-door job, and they actually were like, oh, they were like, you shouldn't do that, get a different job, because there's no guaranteed pay, and it's really backing yourself. When I look back, I'm like, that took some guts, to go in, no salary, no pay, you keep what you kill, you go out, you work your tail off, and you come home, and if you didn't get anything, you go home nothing,
So did that beat you up? Did you take your licks off the bat?
Absolutely.
You survived.
I wish
somehow.
I could say otherwise. But I recall maybe 2 or 3 weeks that I went out without getting a sale, and that was really tough. But I stuck with it because I was just like this. It was back against the wall. This is all I have to be able to go and produce and be able to pay my own way. And early on, I ended up knocking. I started with some kind of no-name telesale, they sold internet and TV service, and they're kind of no-name. And about really early on, I knocked on a guy's house who ended up being a top rep for Vivint. Vivint, I don't know if you've heard of Vivint. Have you heard of Vivint Alarms? Vivint. No. They do Vivint Solar as well. They just went on the stock market. They've grown. They own Vivint Smart Home Arena, where the Utah Jazz play. So they were quite large at that time, and now they've gotten even bigger. But
so you got lucky and got a whale and knocked on the door and it opened up?
I did. I thought I was making the sale. This dude pulls me in. He's like, "You're in the wrong space." And it's just, that's the way the world works sometimes, right? It's an opportunity. When opportunity knocks, I just happened to knock on one of the top reps for Vivint. He kind of took me under his wing, and so that was really cool. And so I got into selling Vivint really early on, and then 3 years later, found myself managing one of their teams in Hawaii. And then I saw solar taking off, and I thought, I'd like to sell something a bit higher ticket and kind of get away from selling the alarms, sell less deals, higher ticket, that kind of thing. And so then I ended up getting a hold of Solar City, who at the time had a door-to-door team, and then ended up going to San Francisco training with Lyndon Rive, which is Elon Musk's cousin, and kind of did some things there, got in, and then a year later I was managing. I started so here I was managing this company, and then I took another big risk and went straight to the bottom of the totem pole, and was just a knocker again, no team. And then it was interesting. My very first year at Vivint, I did training in Bakersfield, California. If anybody knows where that's at, say what up. And it's not the most glamorous place in California, as door knocking is not the most glamorous role either. But I had an opportunity to go manage there because nobody wanted to go there. And so I kind of moved up a bit quicker because I was like, I know the market there. And I was very fortunate to understand the market. A lot of young money there, and really spread out, as California is maybe more built up, and it's really spread out there. So I knew it'd be a good market for solar. And so I went in there and ended up building one of the largest teams at Solar City, which was really cool at the time, quite young. And I was like pretty proud of that. I was like, oh, this is great,
At this point, what are your parents thinking?
They were, well, at this point, I was making more money than they were.
Yeah.
I'll just keep it real with you guys. I've come to understand things. It's more than money to me. But just for the record, I mean, at this point, I was making more money than my parents, and I definitely won them over to the idea that, hey, there are other pathways. Nothing wrong to the path they went down. Nothing wrong to other paths that you can go down. But it was just really a matter of being like, hey, you can be a sales professional, and you can master a craft. And really sometimes the lesson in that is like doing the things that other people don't want to do. It's not a glamorous role. It's not something people, necessarily at a party want to go, hey, so what do you do? Oh, I'm a door-to-door sales guy. It's not the most like, honorable position that way. But I tell you, some of the most amazing people I've met have come through the ranks in door-to-door sales, and it really teaches you a ridiculous element of resiliency and how to deal with rejection and how to be quick thinking on your feet that you just can't learn anywhere else. I don't care how hard you train in a classroom. You just can't pick up that until you're in the trenches and getting fired at, and you're dealing with that on the fly. And if you can make it through that, and you see all these guys dropping like flies, guys just can't handle it, no disrespect to them. It's not for them maybe, or whatever. But when you see the guys that deal with that and make it through, it really builds your confidence and gives you a sturdy foundation to really go build your own business or really do whatever you want to do.
How did you go from, like not having a job, not knowing what kind of career you wanted to head in, and the dedication it takes in order to take those punches, get back up, wake up and check your attitude and make those calls, knock on those doors. How did that evolve?
Yeah, look, early days, I wasn't even really reading at this time. I didn't have a lot of, kind of coaching or knowledge. It was really out of desperation. I was desperate. Like I had to make it work. So that's really what it is. Like back against the wall. If I didn't make this work, I was moving back to my parents' house and bumming money off them. And that wasn't going to happen. I'm not that. I don't do that. So for me, that's literally what it was. It was just like a dedication to myself. Like and I guess to answer your question, that's what it is. It's that moment where you just make that decision, that gut decision of like, I will make this work no matter what. There is no, it's like the old burn your ships thing, right? There's no second option. There's no plan B. It's like, this is what I'm going to do regardless of where it turns out. Like I'm going to put everything into this. I'm going to make it happen.
And how is your relationship with failure? Because to lie to yourself and say, I'm never going to fail at this, like isn't reality, right? Not in sales, right? Because you're getting rejected all the time. So how did you incorporate that into like a learning experience?
Yeah, look, I think to repeat myself a little bit, it's like failure was not an option. It was like that didn't exist 100%. And I credit my mentors early on. This wasn't just, I feel like I grew up with parents who really instilled a really hardworking mindset. So I knew how to work hard. And I was cool with getting up early and knocking before anyone else and staying out and knocking doors later than anyone else. So I was cool with that. Like I didn't care. Like I was happy to put in the work. But I was also, I credit, some of the early mentors I had. Like I said, I got into Vivint and, just so happened to be the guy who brings me in is one of the very top guys. And the first thing he did when he brought me in, and I mean, I knocked his door and he goes, hey, you're on the wrong team. Who is this company? And he's just immediately poking holes. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. They seem pretty good. And he's like, dude, He's like, he takes me over into his office and shows me his check. And I'm just like, what the heck? You know, I think he's making good money. And I'm like, door to door. And he shows me a lineup of his team, and they're all clean cut guys, all look like professionals. And I'm like, they're all wearing matching button up polos. And I'm like, okay, you know, this does seem more legit, right? And so I credit him because he's a hell of a recruiter, right? Brings me in, but next day, the sales on this day, right, convinces me to get on a plane the very next day, within 24 hours, and flies me down to Bakersfield. So I just hopped on. I was like, yep, cool. Hopped on a plane. I quit my job. I quit this other job and jump on a plane next day and fly down to Bakersfield, California. But no, one of the first things he did was plopped a book on my desk, and that was Psychology of Sales by Brian Tracy. And if you know anything about that book or that author, you'll know that it really sparks the whole interest in becoming a sales professional and owning it as well. Owning the profession, right? I think we might have lost your sound.
Yeah, how's that?
No, okay, back on. So yeah, but if you know anything about that book, you know, it really kicks off and sparks and ignites, you know, that whole idea of hey, yeah, you know, I don't know if you ever heard the old thing. It's like, oh, you know, you're either born a good salesman or you're not. That's total bullshit. You know, it's not true. And yeah, we're all born with, you know, you'd be crazy to think that you're not born. Some people are born with more gifts than others and were raised and acquire more gifts growing up. And so they hit the workforce and they're in front of their, you know, some of the other people. Like, you'd be a fool not to acknowledge that. But what I picked out of that book was like, that was the first time I was like really hit with the idea that like you know, it's something you can train as a skill. Like once you understand that, you know, and give yourself the permission to go out and be a badass, or go out and be whatever version of yourself you need to be to show up and kill it. You know, that was a big one for me. And then that just started a journey. It was like up leveling from there. I was like, game on. It was like a new book every week. It was like throwing audiobooks in the car. At the time I was throwing discs into the CD player, you know, and listening to all kinds of, you know, whoever I could listen to, you know, it was just whatever. So
What are your thoughts about, well, like, how did you get past the dirty car salesman, like, image to even pick sales? And then what do you think about like ethical sales, and have you kind of towed the line, or have you pushed up against that?
Yeah. Look, I would say early on when I first started and was just kind of a sponge and was just doing as I was told, I would say there were some uncomfortable moments where I felt like it wasn't quite aligned with my morals and ethics on occasion. Not to say nothing negative about Vivint or the door-to-door space, but there was encounters where I felt like I was coached to maybe sell things that weren't completely ethical. But it's moments like that though that you have those reality checks for yourself, and it's kind of like through learning ethical sales and understanding that you can sell authentically and be yourself without, you know, it was once you really understand that process, like, you know, for anyone who's like, you know, potentially, excuse me, I'm going to have to kill a call coming in. But for anyone who's like, you know, feeling like, if you ever think you need to, you know, go against your morals to be, you know, successful in sales, like that's not accurate. You know, there's definitely, I feel like to truly be successful in sales, you need to learn how to sell ethically. That's the only way. You know, getting a sale across the line is one thing, but retaining those customers, making sure that they have a good experience, making sure that they refer others, like that all comes from selling the right way. And when you sell the right way as well, you get customers in when they're really the right fit. You know, you're not selling the wrong people your offer, right?
Would you even take a job selling something you didn't believe in now?
What do you think? Hell no. No, absolutely not. But to further that low, like, you know, being passionate, like I think I was explaining this a little bit earlier, you know, being passionate about what you sell is great. Believing in it is great. But it's not enough to help you be successful either. It'll get you started. You can get some sales. You'll be okay. You know, if you're selling the right thing and you're passionate about it, you can get some sales and you'll be all right. But you do need to understand the psychology behind sales, and you need to understand it's about your prospect far more than it is about your product. You can have the best product in the world and you can be excited as can be about it, but you can't be more excited than that other person is, right? To get them across the line. Like, you've got to get them excited about it, right? And you got to find out what really motivates that person.
Yep, I learned the wrong way. And with my own business, I remember somebody taking me out to lunch, to coffee, and then I just wouldn't stop talking the whole time. Blah, 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 blah. The whole like hour, they probably said about 2 or 3 sentences. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, so I offer these services, da, 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 da. And yeah, surprise, surprise, no call back. And
Mm-hmm.
it really wasn't until I joined Autonomy and started learning the mindset of sales. What Autonomy taught me was that there's ethical sales, and when you align with that, it's doing what I naturally do, is wanting to share with the world. But then coupling that with what I learned in quantum growth of just how to frame the situation, put the focus on them, get them talking a large portion of the conversation, and then you get to hear all those little nuggets of where they're actually telling you what's important to them.
Yep. And if you notice, I mean, as quantum growth as an example, you can't buy quantum growth on our website. You can't log in, you can't read about it, get excited and buy it. And the reason for that is we really want to practice what we preach in regards to ethical sales. Is it ethical for us to sell that program to somebody who's really not a good fit? I don't think so. And so some people might say, well, that's a sales tactic. You want to get them on the phone, and you want to not tell them the price so you can get them really bought in before you explain it. Maybe there's some truth to that, right? But at the same time, we still going through that process. We're not going to offer it to somebody if we don't genuinely think that that's going to work. And that goes for every sales rep here at King Kong, every strategist, right? Like, there's 10 of us, and we meet every day, and we talk about how we're going to offer it the right way, because it's all coming together and agreeing to that makes that authentic and ethical, right? And we've shown that we can be successful doing it in that way. And I'm not afraid. In fact, I like when I tell someone that they're not a good fit, not for my ego, but I like it because it holds me accountable, and I'm like, hey, I'm being true to the way we sell. And some people get offended, and I have to tiptoe and be careful and explain to them, hey, it's nothing personal. I just don't think for what you're trying to do right now and what your situation is, I don't think that this program is going to be the right move. And that brings a lot of power behind what we do, though, right? If we just get on the phone and we're just trying to sell anyone who's potentially got some money in their pocket, like that's not going to, maybe short term, get a couple more sales, but it's not going to be the right thing long term. So you really need to make that decision early, right?
Right. And yeah, I definitely learned this in quantum growth. You're analyzing and profiling them to see if they would actually be a good fit. And so they think they're there interviewing you if you would be a good service for their business, but really more importantly, are they a good fit? And would it be, would you be able to deliver what it is that you're offering? Mm-hmm. Because for quantum growth, if they don't have the mindset to apply this and do what they're told and do the work, then you guys would end up potentially with a bad review, not because of the quality of your product, but because you didn't catch that they weren't the right person for quantum growth. Absolutely.
And it takes guts to acknowledge that too, because it's easy sometimes as a salesperson to just think about yourself and think about your commission check, or think about, that hit of money that you get by closing the deal. But you have to remove yourself from that. That has to be somewhere off in the distance. It has to be something you don't even consider. If you're authentically selling, you don't even, the commissions, the result of someone buying your program shouldn't even be anywhere on your mind. You should be 100% dialed in to that person and take complete interest in what is in, what it is they're trying to achieve, and have that heart to heart with yourself and be like, hey, is this going to help them get there? Are they suitable for it? It sounds kind of woo-woo. It sounds overly nice. I'm not saying be Mr. Nice Guy, but being genuine in your offering is super crucial.
But that goes back with how satisfying is it to not get a sale, but to be able to provide value to somebody that you've talked to.
it kind of sounds silly when you think of it that way, right? But it feels good. Like you come to appreciate those moments. When otherwise you might see it as a failure. I didn't sell this person. I didn't convince them to come on board. But you start to, I've started to really like reevaluate, what I consider a successful call. My evaluation is scale of 1 to 10. How good was my rapport with that person? How well did we connect? And in another way to put it, how honest was that person with me? Did I really get them to open up and get and break barriers and get them to be honest? Because at the end of the call, if they're telling me they don't have money, right, for what I'm selling, but they're lying, they do. I haven't convinced them enough, right? Then we're not in rapport. That person's kind of pushing me off, or we're not in rapport. He's blowing me off. He's giving me a smoke screen. But if we get down to it, and someone's like, "Man, I literally don't have the money to. I would love to. I would, I would do anything to come into this thing, but I literally have." When then someone says, "Man, I have $1,000 or something like that," or "I have $500 in my account," and I'm like, "That's a successful call." For me, I think we've gotten to the point where we have full trust of each other, and there's a desire to go ahead, but they can't, like that. Even as weird as that might sound, like that's a successful call to me, in my opinion. If we have 100% rapport and trust at the end of the call, that's how I rate success. Have you ever considered that idea? Have you played around with that
never
idea
know what
before?
tomorrow's gonna hold for them, right?
Right.
They realize they need more money in order to get what they want, which is on the other side of the quantum growth wall. And
Right.
so, yeah, your brain
And a
just
lot of those
naturally
people
starts
come
working.
back and jump on later. That's absolutely right, because we sold the right way. And we did build the rapport, and we broke down the fact that they would be a good candidate. So it's just where there's a will, there's a way. And if someone really wants to come on board and they're bought into it, the money will come somewhere or another.
Right. So Brock, you were in California. You're on this big successful team. How did you make the jump to Australia? How did you learn about King Kong?
Yeah, so life took a little weird turn. After some success with Solar City, I decided to take some time off. I took a year off to go backpack Southeast Asia. In fact, I ended up getting my backpack stolen. I was carrying about 2 shirts, 2 socks, pair of underwear. I was carrying about nothing in a garbage bag. Just sounds ridiculous. But after living in Asia, doing backpacking, traveling around for about a year and growing out my hair, that's where the hair comes from. You have to do that apparently if you go travel Southeast Asia for a year. Ended up meeting a lot of people who have gotten visas to go work in Australia. And so I ended up just kind of going there to check things out. Didn't really know what I was in for. Didn't have any agenda in regards to a job. I was more so thinking about getting just a short-term gig, something that just gets a couple dollars in and then make my way back home at some point. But was the question, how do I get with King Kong? Is that what you're saying? How do we get there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny is I credit it with really 2 things. Like one, as you guys know Sabri so well, at the time I thought it was me, right? But looking back, I'm like, it was his freaking copywriting. So there's 2 things at play here, right? So here I am looking for a job, right? And I'm thinking about just getting a regular job. I don't know, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. Whatever's up. I don't care if it's construction. I don't care if it's workforce, labor. I don't care. But as I'm looking through jobs, I'm thinking, okay, let's look at some sales jobs. This is my background. Let's see what we have out there. And I kind of had this wild idea that maybe I should get into another field. Maybe I should learn B2B sales. So I started looking at B2B sales. And this big, huge headline hit me. All-star sales superstar required, fire-breathing unicorn. If you're not that, don't even consider applying for this role. Just this ridiculous copy, right? And this is 4 years ago. So if I remember that still, like that had an effect on me, right? And what was happening there, right? Like what's happening when you read that? And really, I think there's 2 things at play here. It's like, who applies for that? right? Who applies for that role? And so I really, looking back, like when you asked me to come on this and have this chat today, we discuss it. I was kind of doing some thinking. I was like, how did I end up at King Kong? What was the factors, And I think it's sometimes time that goes by lets you reflect a little more clean. You're like, okay, I can see. And man, it's funny because you think about the person that applies for that, who does, right? It's not really someone who's not confident in themselves. Because if I wasn't confident in my skills, or if I didn't think I was eligible for that, that is a very aggressive uh, job description.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And so I just think about it like that's really brilliant on Sabri's part to write something like that, because it immediately scatters the herd, right? This immediately probably blew off 90% of people looking for jobs, because it really comes down to your self-confidence. And not saying I was the most confident person in the world at this point, but I really credit, I felt like I was capable of coming into any sales environment and making it. I'm not saying I'd come in and be their best guy, not having ego driven and coming in and thinking, oh, I'm a hot shot. I don't know anything about this industry of marketing. I knew nothing about it. I thought King Kong, I didn't even know what it was, truthfully, but I do credit the guts to apply for a job with that kind of title, to really backing myself early on and taking a lot of risks. So sure enough, I apply for the job. Shortly after, I get an interview and show up, and here I am at a desk across from Sabri. I'd never heard of him. I know nothing about marketing. Zero. Right? And sure enough, it was Vivint that got me the interview. Sabri's well studied. He had looked at the Vivint culture and their sales training, and he really respected the way that they brought up guys. And so he knew that if I could make it 6 years knocking doors, that I had to have some element of resiliency, and grit to kind of keep going when the times get rough. Anyway, so here I am at his desk and going through it, and he ends up kind of going, "Hey man, why don't you give me your pitch? Can you give me your pitch?" And I hadn't pitched my Vivint pitch in 4 years. I hadn't even put a binder up and knocked on a door in 4 years, but I was like, all right, let's do it. So I grabbed a binder off of his desk and went outside of his office and knocked on his door, and he comes out, opens the door, and then I did a spin move and got in his office. It was like talking. I was just pitching him and stuff, and he's like, we got through it, and I was like, and then I would get out of character and I'd be like, so pretty much at this point, he's like, no, keep going. And he kept making me go through it more, and I was like, okay. And then at this point, he's like, no, keep going. So I was like, kept going. And then at the end of it, he's like, so you want to get started? Let's go. Got the old handshake across the table, and we were good to go. He's like, look, I can't teach you sales and marketing. I can't teach you those things just from ground up right away. Like, it's going to be tough, but if you understand sales, I can teach you marketing. I can get you up to speed. Follow my script, follow our process, and we'll help you be successful. And he was a man of his word.
Wow. So he didn't ask for your resume. He didn't ask what school, diplomas, certificates you had.
Could have cared less.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, I think he could have cared less, honestly. Yeah. It was the sales background. I know 100%. It was the sales background. It was the confidence of being willing to pitch him in the office that allowed that to happen, for sure.
How old were you at this point?
This would have been 4 years ago, so 28, 27 and a half maybe. More in there.
Nice.
Yep.
So then you stayed in Australia for a while. What did you think about the company once you started to get comfortable inside of it?
Yeah, so again, keeping it real, probably for the first 3 months, I was sweating and concerned because I didn't know anything about marketing. I thought I was going to get fired because I was like, I don't know what I'm saying. I was legit reading off a script. You're right. But again, resiliency, I hit some decent numbers in the first couple months and just kept that going. But yeah, Do you mean like in regards to just living in Australia, being at King Kong? What,
Well,
sorry,
I'm
remind me,
really
what do you
curious
mean?
about yeah, the King Kong culture. I've seen some of Sabri's like tour of his office, and it
Yeah.
just seems like a really amazing place to work because each of those people had to like get over the headline hurdles and
Mm-hmm.
to be able to even uh, to become a part of that team. Like you got to have some sort of spark that like you were able to display. So then
Right.
working in that kind of environment, once you got kind of the feelings of you weren't going to get fired, and then you started meeting those around you, what kind of culture is inside of King Kong?
Yeah. So I wasn't sure if Sabri was like nuts or I thought something might have been wrong with him because he like had ridiculous goals and he was just on fire every day he showed up to the office, and I was like, what is this dude on? Like he is on another level. He is operating at a very high, pace here. But you got to understand, at this time we were in this tiny little office in South Yarra and on this back street, and I was like the seventh employee at the time. You know what I mean? So it's like I didn't even know anything about the space, but there was a buzz in the office. You know what I mean? There was a buzz, and we were making deals, we were bringing in clients, and we could tell there was some momentum happening, some really good things were happening, and sure enough, new hire, new hire, new hire. We were just growing, bang, 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 and we were bursting at the seams. We couldn't stay in that office any longer, and then we finally moved off to another office just up the road a little bit, and kind of started it fresh there. And then it wasn't even a couple of year and some change before we filled that thing out. And so now I think there's like 70, roughly 75, 80 employees now. So it was
Wow.
just like, yeah, nuts over the first 4 years I was there.
Wow. So
Yep.
starting off with that script, once you started to internalize it and then learn more about marketing, how did you kind of like own it, and how have you developed your own script?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of people have a lot of negative connotation to scripts. Have you noticed that?
Well, yeah, because I tend to have a certain type of speech, and I'm not fully focused on them when I'm trying to read something and coming
Right.
across. Well, a good example of this, I was interviewing another a person in autonomy, outside of autonomy, and I asked Rich. I
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, Rich, what are some questions that I could ask this person to interview?" And he
Yeah.
sent me his questions in his language, and I tried to say his words in the interview,
Yeah.
and it just derailed the
It
whole
wasn't
thing
right.
each time.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
then I saw the power of like you can't just read other people's words.
Yeah. See, it's funny because there's kind of a negative stigma, I think, to scripts, right? Because like, it kind of takes away your character, you're following a script, you're going to naturally possibly be more robotic, and there's going to be times where like it's obvious to the prospect that you're actually reading off a freaking piece of paper. And I think one of the common mistakes, though, with young guys coming in, even to our business and just in general, as I speak to others in sales and stuff, is kind of feeling like it's not going to work, or feeling like a scripts are no good, and kind of like getting off it too early. When really you got to like understand you're going to take some lumps and bumps early on, anyways. So you need to get familiarized with that script. Now, assuming your workplace has a good script, and obviously with Sabri that wasn't an issue. Like there was a structure to follow, with predict like with consistent results. We knew if we followed this process we'd be successful. So the way I would address is like, it's just understanding to like follow that until you can bring your own personality into it. you know like we had guys, like when we launched Quantum Growth, we had guys, like, I mean, myself included, following the script. I mean, listening to a call or something like that, you're like, dude, you sounded like a robot, right? But we still would get sales, and that really speaks volumes to like having a good script. So it's really important to get a good script, I guess, is like one thing to mention, right? It's really important to have a really good script. But the other thing is like having the like really letting go of your ego, letting go of your own personal kind of feeling around, machoism, or like I'm such a good sales guy. Like let that stuff slide, man. Let it go. Park that. follow the process. Like, you got to be willing to, like, trust a process that's already been there. And then when you honestly have when you got enough sales and you honestly have it figured out and you know how it navigates, then start going off script, because it's really a structure. It's a structure that you're following. The words don't even matter, right? It's a time frame. It's the actual structure of when you should be bringing things up and how it's going to make that person feel, as opposed to like the just word for word thing.
That's
Right?
what I've experienced too. Yeah, like just kind of have milestones that you hit in the conversation. Yeah. But yeah, like the quicker you can internalize that, and then just keep that rapport and comfortable conversation going, it makes it drastic difference.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever considered this, but like for me, like when I like quantum growth, great example, because here I am, 3 and some change years into a role, and all of a sudden we get hit with a new product. How do you pivot? Like, how do you learn selling a new product on the fly when you think you've mastered a certain sales process, and now all of a sudden you're launching a new product, completely different offering, completely different discussion? How do you do that, right? And then how do you, again, drop the ego because you think you're a sales guy, you understand it. How do you drop that and then move in and follow a script again as a 3.5-year vet at a company, right? And something that I think really helped me early on is like, for anybody who's following a script right now, who's like thinks it's too wordy or it's too long, or hey, I don't know about this script. Like a thing that really helped me is actually writing it down into a notebook that you can have on you, and like just chunking it down, like taking out the words, but like putting headlines and putting like the guts of what the concept of it is, and like kind of just chunking it down. So taking like a 15-page sales script and like chunking it down to like 8, chunking it down to 6, 5, right? And just try and like cut out all the long words and all those things. Like keep the stuff that you need to actually say verbatim, keep that stuff in there, but the stuff that you can free flow, just chunk it and put a title, a headline, and that'll just give you that base and structure still. So you're still following the script, but then it gives you the free flow to use your own verbiage on each section.
And it forces you.
That was really key. It forces you.
Yeah, it forces you to fill that part in. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Brock, what kind of day do you have? What's your typical day? Like you're this amazing salesperson in a successful marketing company. You travel around the world, and like how much do you work a week? Like, and then what do you do each day?
Yeah, no, good question. So what are we looking at time? I don't know how much I want to go into this. I'm like,
we're at an hour. We could go for another.
Okay. I'll keep it simple here. So, so when I look at my day, like, I don't really know who's tuning in. So I don't know who my audience is right now. I don't know who's going to get what out of this, but I'll just share with you what it takes in my book to be successful. What I do is like really setting up your day. It's like, don't make the decision to show up in the morning. Don't wake up and decide the kind of day you're going to have. Like go into the month, go into the quarter, go into the year already with your goals planned. Like you need to know where you're going to be, and you need to really guard your calendar with your life. You need to I think Grant Cardone says the devil is in the white space in your calendar, right? It's like really, map out the hours. So for me, King Kong, I have it. I think I have it right now. I kind of change around. I play with my times to kind of figure out what's suitable to my clients and myself, and to kind of give myself the space to work. But I think I have it right now at open it up at about 1 p.m. usually when I start my day, and then I have it open till about 10 p.m. So anywhere in that window, people can book in with King Kong, book in. And so that gives me a pretty good chunk in the morning. So in that morning time, it's really crucial for me to like get my mind right. So it's like, I don't know how woo-woo everyone is on this call. I don't really care. It's like, but hey, this is what works. It's like meditation, exercise, sitting out and journaling every day. Like, it doesn't even matter, whatever it is for you. Like have a routine, have something that puts you into that headspace where when 1 o'clock hits or when 9 a.m. hits, whatever that time is when you lock in for work, make sure that you're not showing up for work then. Show up for work 3 hours earlier when you're getting all your stuff done. Like get all that preparation ready so that you're just in the zone when it's time. And you're in that state and you're ready to give to whoever's on that other line.
What was one of the most like difficult sales calls you had, or face to face? Like what when did you kind of
Where do I start?
yeah.
So, oh man, honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know. I've had very many. I wish I could say otherwise.
Did
In the door-to-door
they
world, it's usually a finger, it's usually an FU, it's a door slam, something like that. In the phone sales space, in the space I'm in right now, I'm very fortunate. So for anyone kind of like working out what kind of sales career do I want to get in, get yourself to a point where you're working for a company that is investing in their marketing and they're doing it well, so that you can get on the phone with people who are really pre-framed around the offer, and they're hopefully, if done right, excited about your company, so that you can have really winning conversations with those people. And in saying that, not that I don't have bad calls today, I still do, but it's like, it's like the worst I really get is when people kind of try and hijack the call, and they're really it just comes from a place of fear. People are scared to be sold, and they when they get on a call, there's just a little bit of fear that I'm going to pull some shady, dodgy deal on them, and I think that people feel that, right? They don't want to get into that call, so it's really important to just kind of take over that call early and let that person know that you're not going to do that to them, and that this is different, and but they need to play ball with you. We need to have an open discussion. Don't hijack my call here. Yeah. Do you feel that? Have you had that one?
Yeah, and I'm getting much better at it just by leading team meetings and more and more client meetings. Yeah,
and it's a whole nother discussion, isn't it? Like, it's a whole deeper topic of like how to really take control of a call that's gone awry. Like, how do you do that, right? It's a whole nother discussion. But that's about as bad as it gets here. I'm blessed to say that working at a company that works as hard as King Kong does to really get the leads in that are really qualified and educate them so that they're not coming in with total question marks, that they're really bought into what we're doing. And now we're just kind of playing, hey, are we going to be a fit? A world of difference. It's complete different from the door-to-door space, where you never know what you're going to get when you knock on the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a veteran now, so this might not happen very often, but how do you manage fear? Like, does that ever creep in and you ever like think you're out of your league?
Yeah. Look, we're all going to deal with it, right? I'm sure you do. Richard, I'm sure you do. Maybe not. Richard's just so silky smooth. I don't know if he ever deals with fear. But like, we're all going to deal with it to some degree, in my opinion. But the best like advice I can share in regards to conquering that fear and really showing up and minimizing your fear, because I believe that fear comes from not maybe fear can come from like the uncertainty, right? So you think about, what does a fearful person show up as in a sales call? How does that even happen? What would make me scared if I was going to knock on a door? What would make me scared at King Kong when I have someone booked in for a call with me, and we're set to chat in 5 minutes, and I'm reading the notes and I'm checking over that, and I'm about to prepare to call Roger at S&S technology firm in Ireland? Why would I be scared? And really, the fear and the being scared of that really comes from me being uncertain about my process. And it also can come from my attachment to hopefully winning that deal. Oh gosh, I hope he buys from me. Right? And so the way that I feel that you navigate fear is add certainty. Get really clear on your process. Get a hold of a process that works, and trust that process. And I don't know what pathway you necessarily have to go down in each individual space to get there, but get clear on your process, because when you dial in your process and you have a working process, right? At a very high percentage you'll close deals, right? Your certainty will rise. And the attachment one, do you feel, when I say, I trust this makes sense, I'm just spitballing, but like, does this make some sense when I say attachment to the sale and when I say certainty? Does that
I mean,
make good sense?
that equates to to confidence, but also like
Yep.
reality, what's taking place instead of
Right.
afraid of what might happen in the future.
Exactly. It's the unknown, right? And so get yourself certain first off. Get yourself certain with your process. The other one, though, about attachment, it's a really big one, and I don't think it's talked about enough. I don't think people even really talk about it because we just don't really go there sometimes. But let's all face it. You know, when we're in sales, we can get ourselves so attached to the end result that it becomes a downer. It becomes you know, it doesn't feel good when someone says no or that rejection, right? And so you're like, oh, so that creates a fear in itself, is you're tied to that result of that client. And so one of the things I teach, you know, my fellow guys and friends of mine, anytime I'm in a relationship where I'm like, we're discussing this, what I teach is like really, you know, focus on your macros. Like, okay, like reverse engineering what you want, right? So if I want 10 sales in a month, and let's say I close 25% of people I speak to, okay? Well, in order to close 10 sales next month, I need to really get into a conversation with 40 people who are good prospects. If I can do that, I will likely get 10 sales, right? And so really it's kind of like staying committed to, okay, how do I get into 40 conversations? Okay, well, statistics tell me that every 5 calls I make, I'll get one. So it's just reverse engineering. So I know in order to get into 40 good conversations, I need to make 160 calls. You feel me on this? So you're really just working backwards, right? You're reverse engineering, and you're getting really clear on what activity. And the whole purpose of this conversation is like, once you get clear on the activity, the rest will follow. Just get clear on the activity. And let's say I do this. Let's say I stay really, truly committed, and I'm like, you nailed it, man. You did your 160 calls. But unfortunately, at the end of the month, I had 6 sales. What happened, right? It's staying true to the process and knowing, well, look, statistically, I closed 25%. So maybe this month was an anomaly. Next month, I'll bounce back. Look at it over a quarter. Stretch it out over a year. And what that does is it really allows you to detach from the sale. So you just focus on your activity. The rest will fall. Makes sense? And do what you can to improve your conversion rate. How can we get it to 30%? What needs to happen? Do I need to buy a course? Do I need to hire a coach? Do I need to read another book? How can I learn more skills to increase my conversion rate? And when you really start breaking down and putting mathematical equation behind your numbers, what happens, right? You get really clear. And when you get really clear and really certain, fear disappears.
Awesome. That's a really great explanation. And I was going to ask about, goals. Like how do you keep an upward trend when you know, like what goal's too big, and do you ever hit that, or do you ever back away from that, or say like, oh, I could never do that? How do you get real clear on your goal?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier, but it's like sitting down and journaling every day. Like I'm 100% committed to that. Like download a calendar app that allows you to put an X on there and just create the habit. You know, write down and call yourself out when you're not following up on your goals. You know, it just really comes down to how committed you are to hitting that goal. You know, but you have to first commit to that goal. You know, and then again, if you say, hey, my goal is to hit, you know, $100,000 this year, $200,000, whatever that number is in your head, whatever you think is achievable, reverse engineer that, figure out what needs to take. And at the end of the year, if you didn't hit that, who do you have to blame but yourself, right? And you're going to look back, and I assure you, if you didn't hit your goal, it's because you didn't do the activity. That's it. So I'm guilty of it. Like for me, it's like sometimes I look at my goal, and at the end of the year, I'm like, dang, I didn't think big enough. You know, I didn't get big enough. So something I'm working on, man. I don't know about you, you know, but it's like, you know, you got to really think. You got to think bigger and push yourself to kind of grow out, because sometimes your goal is coming from a place of where your potential is now, what you think is possible.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's where mentorship comes in, and having others, you know, really getting in touch with people who've done it already, who've made more, and try and get into their head, you know, find out what they think is possible and see if you can still that a little bit.
Yeah. I gotta compliment Rich here. He says, go big on your goals, but it's really not even about hitting the goal. It's about appreciating, like, because you tried to shoot so high, you made it this far, which was way bigger than thinking small. So appreciate the journey that you're on.
Well, you give yourself permission by doing that, right? If you set a goal for this big number you don't think is possible, you've given yourself permission to go get that. And if you're not on track to hit it, don't change your goal, right? Don't change it. Go, well, I'm only on track to do 200 instead of 500 now, so don't change your goal, right? Just fall short if so be it, right? But maybe change your actions in that left off bit where now I need to double down. I need to go twice as hard. Yeah, I love it.
Sweet. Well, this has been a really great conversation, Brock. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing this inside look. It really is like your responsibility, your success, right? It's nobody else's job to just hand that stuff to you.
Yep. 100%.
Well, I would love to open this up to Q&A. Rich, do you have any other questions or comments on this?
I don't have any questions, but I will cover you while you bring panelists over to ask smart questions to this very astute and eloquent guest speaker. I had some notes, Brock. All right, so I'm going to go.
Good.
This is kind of like haphazard, out of order, probably. First off, I laughed out loud at least 2 times in a very good way at things you were saying because I related so strongly to them. So I look forward to future conversations offline. Script versus method. So I think what you're saying is when you got there, you got a script, but you have to internalize it and make it your own so it doesn't sound robot speech. So right. For instance, for quantum growth, I could tell that you were going through a method, but you had really taken the time out to listen to us and to make it all custom. So it wasn't clunky at all, right?
Yeah.
Which leads to point number 4, as far as someone who does your job, I know you know this, but I want you to have external validation that you are very good at what you do. And both me and my wife worked in high-tech sales. So we have talked to and worked with a lot of excellent salespeople. And the way you went through that call and handled and, you assuaged concerns, you handled objections, you mitigated, you listened, you responded appropriately, like a lot of things that people don't have the capacity to do these days. And it's because you had a structure, you had a method, but you also take the time out to ask the question, sit back and listen, give your full attention. And I think that comes from natural, genuine curiosity on your part. Yeah. Curiosity, interest, and it makes it easy for you to do what you do, which is why you do what you do. And I just want to give courage to other people that have the ability to ask questions and listen and come up with plans of action. That's an essential skill in this world, whether it's called sales or not, which leads me to a successful call. So on my side for enrollment for the course, a successful call looks like a better plan, more options, coming out with a more positive framing of their situation so that even if they don't join the course, they got something better from that hour of investment of time. I think you do likewise.
People are going to remember how they feel, Richard. People are going to remember how they feel when they get off a call with you. And you also, I thank you so much for what you said, honestly. I really appreciate it. And look, I think it's like, I think what I was mentioning earlier is like, don't get off the script too early, right? Don't take the training wheels off too early. Like there's a script for a reason. Assuming you're at a place that has a good script, right? But don't get off it too early. But the thing is you got to understand, why are these questions being asked? Why is this question on the script? Not just ask it to ask it. And that's the problem I see people asking, is they get on the phone with a guy like you, Richard, and they ask you a question and you tell me the answer and you open yourself up to me. And then I go to the next question and I don't even acknowledge it. I don't even care about you. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like you're not paying attention. You're not good at your job. You haven't done it very long. You're not going to be doing it for very long. Not going to have very many customers. So
and what happens to rapport?
Rapport goes out the window. Rapport goes out the window.
Out the window. It's gone.
Yeah.
And you're not going to buy from me if we don't have rapport. It's done. Deal's done.
Well, in your case, with your excellent product offering, I probably would have still, with a clunky person, gone through with the transaction because it's like like I said, it's almost too good to be true. But in your case, I got to spar with somebody that I was like, this person has skills and they're good at what they do. And I love buying from people who are good at what they do because there's excellence embedded throughout the whole thing.
Sure.
The other one is, strong sales skills, good. You can travel the world. But it's all about the leads, because if you don't have leads to respond to as a salesperson, you're dead in the water. And I said to my wife while we were listening, I said, back when, at least the companies I worked for, we didn't have marketing. It was all cold calling. It was interrupting people at their job and trying to hold their attention. In her case, she worked for Oracle Corporation. They are well known, so their name precedes them. But still, in your situation, to be able to go through this process, the way Sabri has it set up, as far as how you find out that there is quantum growth available, and then the education process up to it, the marketing made the sales part a very easy lifting task for you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so well explained already. It's just about how do we do?
Yep.
We want to, how do we do?
Yep. And that's what good marketing should do, right? It should give enough information to cover some of the major objections and to sell your concept. And the idea, because Sabri talks about this all the time, it's like, the old school model is like, someone shows up to a store and let me show you my wares, right? And then it's like this sales begins, right? And they have to go through the sales guy to get the information they need. And that's no longer the case. People want to find out more about your product. They want to learn as much as they can on their own. Like, I think it's quoted in the quantum growth program, we talk about it, right? It's like 70% of a buyer's decision is made before they speak to you. So if that's the case, like, your marketing really needs to hit those. So I have to, I really regularly check in with myself and I go, hey, look, I have a gratitude that I'm in a position where leads are coming in at this quality. I recognize that. You know what I mean? I'm not showing up and being like, taking all the credit. Like, I have to give credit where credit's due. The leads are coming in and attracting great people like you, Richard, and Joshua, like, to bringing guys like you that really understand this stuff and to be able to see this and go, oh, I can learn from this with already the knowledge you guys come in. That's a great, that's great marketing. So 100% agree with you. Couldn't agree more.
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due. Joshua is the one who really went through the course and implemented everything. And though I have sampled, and what I noticed in my samples is there's a lot of similarities between quantum growth and some of the weeks of autonomy, but it's all good.
Cool.
Because
we copied you guys probably.
Well, I figured I was like, what is he talking about right here? I'm like, oh, you know what? That's in my lead magnet. How smart of him. And where else can I leverage other people's lead magnets in my work? Because it's free work that's being put out there. So it was brilliantly applied. But when I heard that, I was like, he's like so close to being on the same page as what we're teaching, and it's complementary. It's not competitive at all.
Yeah.
From that aspect, I was really not surprised, but I was continuously impressed, dude. And I have a high standard of this. And my only thing I would offer to other people is that the concern is when you put some chunk of money down on investing in yourself, how do you make it pay off? And I do that so regularly and so often. I know how to calculate and put it in my schedule and like how long is it going to take to implement and pay off. I do that all the time because I'm practiced in that. Some people just taking the step for the first time to try to be like off the beaten path because they're getting beaten off the path. They need that extra confidence. How do you help them in that conversation come to that point where it's like they're the only one taking the risk and they're the only one who controls the outcome and all the things that go on? It's one of the few places we do have control. Yeah.
Look, you talk to any major influencer in business, you talk to anybody, Grant Cardone talks about it. Sabri, I don't know, doesn't matter. List goes on, right? Like, you talk to anybody and you think about, okay, if I have $5,000, where should I put that money? In yourself. If I have 10 grand right now, how should I invest that money and get a return? Put it in yourself. Until you have enough money to really make an investment in something, a property or a business, or put that money into yourself, like self-educate. I don't care if it's a mentorship, a business coach, a sales coach, like a freaking life coach. I don't care. Whatever it is, like, put that money and invest in yourself. Buy books, buy tapes, buy programs. Like, get yourself upskill yourself. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to learn? Is it Facebook ads? Buy a course on Facebook ads. Like, upskill, put the money into yourself. And look, when you sit down and you think about, am I going to get a return on my investment? Right? It's like, well, who better to invest in? Like, who else can I trust other than myself? Right? Like, you better trust yourself. And so really it's you showing up and getting your return, but like, you should be able to get a return on your return on investment should be higher with yourself than just about anything else you do.
And that's the next secret of marketing. Can you explain like what a successful marketing campaign can do for a company using personal examples of what you see going on in your company?
Oh, that's a tough one, man. I mean, it's like look, I mean, describe a better situation for a business. Like the biggest thing I see, like as I speak to entrepreneurs and I speak to startups and I speak to businesses who've been in business for 20 years, right? Who've been operating word of mouth, relationships, face-to-face, networking, is that you can even grow a business to $1 million. You could grow $1 million business to $2 million. You can grow a successful business through word of mouth and relationships and old school models, right? But like across the board, the biggest concern I see from them is that they've never installed a lever that they can pull down and accelerate their growth and have complete control over it. So there's no more important vehicle than being able to allocate $1 to your clientele. Like if you know for a fact that it costs you $10 to get someone to download a free report, and it takes 5 of those people to download a free report that will book in a call with you, right? Costing you $50 to get someone on a call with you. And if you know that every 3 calls, one of those will turn into a client, you've now set up an acquisition model where every $150 you spend, you get a client. And if your client values $10,000, $5,000, right, you're spending $150 and getting $5,000, whatever that is. And once you understand that and can apply that with predictability, you can go out and do anything with your business. Unlike anybody who's been operating for 10 years as word of mouth, I guarantee you, show me that person, and that person will, if you said, hey, what's your goal? Oh, I want to double my business next year. How are you going to do that? Oh, well, we're going to get twice as many referrals as we did last year. And this is no knock to people that operate that way. Go ahead and do it. You can be very profitable. You can be wildly successful, but you'll never have the ability to just go out and never have to worry about where your next customer comes from. It's impossible.
That was well said. All right. The last note I had was you talked about being separated, or how do I say, detached from the outcome. And I find that is awesome, because when I talk to people in enrollment calls, I say, I'm not enrolling you during this call. We're just going to have a nice conversation. I'm going to give you a better set of options than you have when you came into the call, which is easy for me to do. It's not even work. It's fun for them. It's exhilarating. There's a follow-up process. So I'm always detached from the outcome. You guys have a more aggressive, hey, here's an offer on the table. You got to take it or leave it, or, learn how to step up.
Makes it hard, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a spectrum. So I definitely appreciated that part of the process at the end. And I was like, you asked, I knew when you asked the questions at the beginning that they would be used at the end to help justify the deal. Right?
What you say now will be held against you at the end of this call.
Yeah, for sure. So I like to show that, it doesn't all have to be, because I took, I'm a graduate of Dan Locke's high ticket closers course. And I found that to be an interesting course because I've done the job before and earned 7 figures in that job. That course tells you one specific way to deal with people in one call to close high ticket deals. And it's not my preferred way. I would never teach that way to anybody else. And the way I teach it in Autonomy is very different. If anyone else, there are several students who have been in both courses. How do you guys deal with it? Because I think you have a nice middle of the road approach where you're assertive and you're not needy, because needy's creepy, but you guys are very on point. Like, you've done this, you know how this works, and you have a method. And if I want to step up and participate in that, it is my commitment. And I think that's all great at the end. It's very, very well architected, very eloquent. Yeah.
Look, if I'm getting the question right, it's kind of like, how do we navigate that, right? How do we stay? It's almost like how do we ask for the sale at the end of the call without being sleazy? Like, how do we have the guts to do that and still detach from the sale? Like, when the stakes are so high and you're either going to tell me yes or no right then on the call, like, how do I not stay attached to the result? Because if you tell me no, I'm immediately like, oh, right? And it comes down to emotional intelligence. It's emotional intelligence. When you're on that call, okay, and that person has answered everything in a way that that they'd be a good fit for this program, and you've stayed in rapport with that person, so they trust you. They trust you to give out the right advice, right? Then you have every right to ask for that sale at the end of the call if they are somebody who genuinely would be a good fit for the program, and you really think that they're in a position to make a decision as well. If you don't think that they're in a position, don't make it awkward. Don't ask for the sale if they're not in a position. In your guys' case, you were both on the phone. There was no other one to make a decision. What do we want to do, guys? And look, we've presented everything. I can tell you want to do it, but not being attached in the way of, like, if you guys told me no, so it's all good, man. You got to be cool with that, right? But like, my certainty was so high. I was convinced that if you guys came in, that you guys would slay it. and be a great testimonial for us and a success story. So if I believe that, then what the hell am I doing getting off the call and not asking for the sale? Got to have the confidence to ask for it. And I truly believe you guys would be a great fit. So it's like, it didn't bother me to ask for that and go there with you, explore it with you, right?
And it shouldn't. If you think about it, it's like if we're qualified and you don't make the offer and you don't put that additional, like there's an offer on the table, you need to make a decision. If you don't do that, you can't help us unless we do a deal. So you're like, once you know someone's qualified, it's it's your obligation to, when you're trying to help somebody, to give them a choice. They can say yes or no, or maybe later, but that's part of the gig. Right.
And that's something you build in confidence, right? Is getting that certainty and really getting to the point where like you actually feel like it's your duty and obligation, right? To like get someone to come in something if you think it's in their best interest, you know, and don't sell yourself in you thinking it's their best interest when it's not. And that's when they go into the deep dive, and that's the authentic ethical side of really digging in and making sure that all the boxes do check. And when they do, go for it. And it's fun. So, I think we had fun on our call. I don't know about you, Richard, but I had a blast.
I had a great time, and Joshua, like he articulated it back like he was watching some all-star sports match, boxing, tennis, something like two competing Spartans on the field. And so I thought that
great clash of energy.
That was great. And then I like to picture that somewhere out in Tomorrowland, there's a man in a black t-shirt on a treadmill or Stairmaster or something, and then he's listening to this interview. And I would like to say that Brock needs a raise. He doesn't have to have one if it's not fiscally smart because of COVID. That'd be an excuse, right? But you definitely deserve one, dude, because you've put a very palatable public face on the whole process that up until now was just like me and him. And I'm always like, okay, I have this quasi-personal relationship where I got introduced to him, but I'm reading his emails as a customer. And to be able to take the book, the course, and the salesperson who got us into the course. Thank you again for that whole experience, because like it was very challenging, but it's a rewarding challenge. It's a type of challenge that it's like, I was teaching this course and COVID had just happened and you brought that opportunity to our awareness, and we stepped up and took that. We triggered complexity. We took that extra challenge. We doubled down on ourselves, and it's going to pay for itself so many more times than once.
It will.
Which it already has. So thank you.
Oh,
and now I'll turn it over to Joshua to do the Q&A.
Well, great questions. Thanks for answering all that, Brock. Anybody with a question that they have for Brock, go ahead and turn your camera on, unmute yourself, and either just say hello or ask away.
Excited to see what pops in. What do we got? Don't be shy, guys. Guys and girls, whoever's on the call, don't be shy.
Hey, Lawrence, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I won't be shy.
Good.
There. Hi, Brock.
Who do we got next to you, Lawrence?
This is my wife, Candace.
Hello, Candace. I saw you hiding. Pull you back in. Good to speak with you guys.
You too. This was a great conversation, a great interview, Joshua. Thank you so much. Got me very excited about the idea of sales. If I had a question to throw out, in this new normal for somebody who hasn't had the experience going out and knocking on doors, I don't know, how would you approach getting into sales?
Look at job postings, see what's actually out there, see if anything catches your eye. So do you don't have any sales experience coming in right now? Would it be kind of a fresh take?
Yeah.
Look, I'll be honest, man. It's tough. Like, it's going to require a lot of grit to just get in and be like, okay, I'm just going to get into sales. Right? Like, it takes, first off, a lot of guts to just step in and go for it. And you might find yourself in a job where there's maybe not a base pay, where you're coming in and you're going to have to earn your stripes really early. And you got to understand, in this market right now of uncertainty, that whatever level of energy that it took you to get a sale 6 months ago, it might take twice the amount of energy. which might sound daunting, right? But it just means you need to bring it that much more in whatever you're interested in doing. The good news is we're always looking for salespeople, right? Like every company is looking for salespeople, right? So you may not be able to come into a role like where I'm in, where leads are coming in because the stakes are a bit higher. It's costing the company a lot of money to acquire that lead. And so they don't want to take risks necessarily on someone just coming in. Some will though, so don't sell yourself short. But like sometimes companies will want a bit more experience coming in because they're thinking, hey, it's going to cost me $100, $150 to get you on the phone with a prospect. And if we don't close them, that's money out the window. So you might have to start in a role where you kind of, maybe you're setting appointments, something like that. But really, man, it's like doubling down on your education. Like how do you, like, what are you doing now? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah, aside from working at a home retailer, home improvement retailer,
Yep.
you know, I'm working on freelance skills with Autonomy Unlimited.
Awesome, man. A good resource for you, man. I don't know if you heard me earlier. There was a big fat book that landed on my desk from one of my great mentors called Psychology of Sales. Read that, baby. Have those guys link up with me if you want to reach out and get other books. I'm sure these guys can hook you up anyways, but if you want other resources, once you get through that one, if you want other ones. But it's like endless, man. There's so many ways to like self-educate. Get yourself on board with the skills you need to know. But the other thing is there's a lot of cool, a good one for you to check out is sellcrowd.com. Those guys are posting jobs, remote sales jobs online. It's a great resource. I don't know if you guys, Joshua, Richard, have heard of that, but it's actually, I spoke with them a while back. A potential client, we didn't work together. My pitch probably wasn't very good, but really great guy. They're posting jobs on there, and we're talking like, not maybe not high pay straight away, but like really good entry level points to get in and build a relationship with businesses who need salespeople. And you can get in and be an appointment setter first, or get in and get paid hourly. So I would check that out, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lawrence. Brock, how has your sales skills benefited you in other areas of your life?
Yeah. Read The Psychology of Sales, right? You start Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. You start to realize everything is a sale, right? It's like everything, every little thing, convincing someone to marry you. Maybe that was you, Lawrence. Maybe you convinced her, right? It's like, there you go. There's your first sale, buddy. But like, it's like everything's a bit of a sale, right? It's like, it's the power of persuasion. It's really getting someone excited about your idea. It's the transfer of enthusiasm. It carries over to every part of your life. And if you don't think that's true, reevaluate that. Consider it. Consider if that was possible. What would that? How could that be true? And I think you'll find it's pretty true across the board.
I was going to say.
Did I hear a laugh? Yeah.
No, I was going to say the answer to my question was you get in Autonomy and practice in the dojo and learn from Richard Grove.
There you go. The man knows what he's talking about. Real recognize real.
Anybody else want to hop on, say hello? Maybe just share what one of your favorite parts from this interview?
I've got a question.
Hey, Brandon.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I was just curious how you would change your approach if you were selling a physical product versus a course or service.
Sure. Are you selling a product right now?
Well, I'll actually tell you straight up like what I'm considering. So one of my favorite guitar makers, I've noticed him over the last 6 years, his sales, maybe within the last 4 years. I've been following his work for the last 6, and within the last 4, I've noticed his sales kind of going downhill. It used to be he'd make a guitar, put it up, and it wouldn't be there for, a week or two, and it would be sold. And I don't know, I'm thinking about making him an offer to maybe take some off his hands and try to sell them myself to try to stimulate his business a little bit more.
What's the price point of the guitars?
Well, that's another thing is, so he struck a deal with Guitar Center couple of years ago, and they forced him to double his prices, but he still will sell them to like customers that before that time for between 2,600 and 2,800. But if you go to his website right now, they're between 28 and 4,200.
Okay. Why do people buy this guitar? What's unique about it?
Well, it's completely handmade, hand carved neck. I've never felt. I've played that. The first time I played one was in Florida on vacation, and I was just like blown away at how it felt.
Cool.
The bodies are very thin. They're all custom made. So they're every single one is different.
Mm-hmm.
He has a painting background, so he'll every now and then he'll do like a abstract painting on one.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of an interesting one because I don't even know if I'm the best really to really answer it, because I haven't really sold guitars or like a solo product, you know. And when I was knocking door to door selling alarm systems, there was a lot of emotion involved. Like a knock on the door, and I'd be, you know, walking them through. Hey, you probably never need this, but if you did, you'd be happy you had something like this, right? So it's like it's a little bit different process. You can't really knock on doors and sell guitars. I mean, you could, you know, but I guess if you're thinking about like how do you get in front of your prospective audience, does he sell them like straight from his website, or because I don't really see this being something where it's a consultative sale. That's my struggle. You know, I'm not really like, if you tell me, hey, I'm in the room with someone who wants to buy a guitar, I could help you navigate that conversation. But I'm not really sure if you said, hey, I'm going to help this guy sell guitars, I'm not 100% sure where you would get those conversations happening. So hey, forgive me. This might be bad advice, maybe good advice, but like my first thought is like, okay, if you want to help this guy, do it, man. Just go in. If you feel good about it, you love the guitars, contact him, tell him that you're passionate about the guitars, and just go in, man. You have nothing to lose, so just do it, and then figure out the rest later. The rest later might be like, okay, I go into Facebook groups, into guitar groups. I go in and on Instagram and I find guitar enthusiasts and I ask around. I don't know, whatever it is, man. Like if there's a will, there's a way. Like figure it out that way. But like if you're asking about the consultation side, if you're sitting in a room with someone who's looking at it, it's just the same kind of process I walked through, which is like finding out what that person really needs, finding out what kind of a guitar they like to play, what they're trying to do, where they're trying to take their, you know, their guitar passion. And then being able to like explain the uniqueness of your guitar, you know. That could be bad or good advice. Like, forgive me, it could go both ways, but you know, no experience in selling guitars, brother.
Brandon jumped out and jumped back in. So
Yeah, it dropped me out. Sorry. I think I got
Were
most
you
of
able
it.
to hear it though?
I was only out for like maybe 5 seconds.
Yeah, of course you had to hit me with that one, huh, Brandon? Selling guitars,
Sorry.
huh?
Well,
No, it's no problem. It's just so specific. It's a tough one, man. Like I really don't know if I'm even really.
well,
the
you don't. I
best
guess you don't have to answer it.
to be honest.
I thought I'd give you a specific example, but you could answer it in general if you wanted to. Like just how you would change
Yeah.
your approach from a digital product to a physical product.
Yeah, and I think you know, I'm selling a product right now. You know, quantum growth is a product. You know, you're looking at a high ticket offer where it is going to be over 8,000 to 10,000. You know, for a course like that. And so the type of people that we're going to be on the phone with would be people who've already seen videos about it. They've already kind of been pre-framed about what's in there. And then you're kind of having this consultation with them, right? And so you're trying to kind of figure out what this person's looking to use it for and where they're at and where they want to go and what problems they're having, and getting really clear about their problems, right? And then really looking at, hey, can we help them solve that problem with this product? You know, and the guitar thing's a bit different because it's not necessarily something that would immediately be able to give them a return on their investment, right?
the values in what Brandon was first talking about of his experience getting his hands on that guitar, right? Unlike anything he's ever felt before. So you're really just trying to sell that experience for them instead of.
That felt good when he said that, huh? He's like, oh, it's got the neck. It's like, that's like nothing I've ever felt. like that's actually a great point, man. That's the answer, really. Like transferring that enthusiasm you have for that guitar to your prospect. If you can do that, you'll be selling those guitars. Thanks, Joshua. Owe you one.
Thanks.
Anybody else with a question, comment, complaint?
I have a question. Long-time listener, first-time caller. And my question goes like this. If one were making their video sales letter and planning out shots for their webinar, and they have graduates and students coming to their house this weekend on Saturday, what questions should I ask them and film with nice cinematic lenses and a film crew such that I could pepper and spice, as Sabri says over and over again, the VSL and the webinar? And if you don't have an answer right now, that's fine. But if I could get an answer by like Thursday, that'd be great.
Yeah. I'd say refer to Quantum Growth. It's that course you paid good money for.
Already did. I rewatched.
Go to Quantum Growth and watch it.
Bible, the Quantum Growth Bible.
I would say, here's what I would tell you, sir, because I don't know who you are out there, mystery man, Richard.
I call it.
But what I would tell you is there's this incredible mastermind group that was built on the back end of Quantum Growth to facilitate questions like
Facebook?
that.
Because I don't have a Facebook account. That's my
Joshua does.
That's my major downfall.
Get in there. I'm telling you, I'm not joking. Get your question in there. Post it. Sabri's doing videos. He's dropping videos every week, and he's breaking
Joshua
it through.
Will clip my question, and he'll put it in the Facebook.
Put it in there, Joshua. That's above my pay grade, buddy. I don't know how to answer that question.
You just get them to the door. Yeah.
Exactly. It's been awesome speaking with you guys, man. Pleasure.
Yeah, Brock, thanks so much for joining us. I felt a little bit of apprehension about asking, and so I'm stepping up. I'm making offers, and I really appreciate you returning the call and
of course happy to
making
contribute.
yourself and your wisdom available to our audience like that. I really hope we can maybe do this again in the future, and of
course,
I'm excited to watch your continued success with King Kong.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. It's awesome being able to say we're working together. And, I was just thinking, Joshua, now that I'm back in the States, we do need to link up. We're not that far from each other. Let's not be two strangers here. So
Rich did suggest that of like, hey, you guys go have an in-person interview. And I was like, it's a bit awkward right now. But
but we'll work on that. We'll get some things together. That'd be cool. So I really appreciate you guys having me on, though. I appreciate all the shower of compliments you've handed over to our agency, Sabri, the forum, a little bit to me. You guys, really appreciate you.
We'll see. Thanks again, Brock. And we'll continue this conversation offline.
Cool. Sounds good. See you guys.